Hello everyone and welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Mel and this is the video that I love to watch and hate to film, my worst books of the year. I talk about books that I don't like all year long, and I don't know why when you come to like sit down and put it all in a condensed video format, it just feels very intimidating because I don't want to not like one of the books that you love. This is a good place for me to put the annual disclaimer that if I am talking about a book that you love, it's not you, it's the book. No, I'm just kidding. If you love a book and I'm talking about it, that doesn't mean that I think that you have bad taste or that I am the only opinion that matters. These books just didn't work for me, and that's okay. Honestly, I love watching people's worst books of the year for a couple of reasons. One, a lot of times they're just funny to hear people talk about why they didn't like the books. It's entertaining. And then the other half is that sometimes I find books that I'm interested in because of people's worst books of the year, because I don't have the same taste as everyone else. So I do think that these videos have a purpose, and I hope that you will understand that if I didn't like one of your favorite books, it's nothing personal, it's just the book didn't work for me. So I guess cue the stress, cue the sweating, and let's talk about the 10 books that really did not work for me this year. So I'm not really going to talk about these in any particular order. I didn't rank these. They're just the books that I gave 1 star or a low 2 star. The books that I wanted to like, but sadly did not. So first let's talk about The Inmate by Freida McFadden. This book is one that I knew that I wasn't probably going to give 5 stars, but also really was hoping that I would like. I had tried a Freida McFadden last year and DNF'd it within the first 10%, but a couple of my friends were reading The Inmate and they were like, it's really good, it's crack candy, it's addictive, it's not like the best literature ever, but it's a ton of fun. But no, it wasn't. Actually, I take that back. It kind of was in some ways, and the most ridiculous thing that I've ever read in others. This is about a woman that is a doctor and she decides that she's going to go work in a prison because she doesn't have any other prospects and she's trying to take care of her son. But turns out that the prison is housing her ex-boyfriend who tried to kill her and murdered all of her friend group back like 15 years ago. Already a bad idea. While it was entertaining, I did finish it, and in the middle of it, I was like, all right, like this is not good, but it is entertaining. But the logic was not there. First of all, why not move? Like, I know that she had her parents' house and everything to live in, but I would move. I'm not gonna go work in a prison where my boyfriend tried to kill me. So there's that. And the ending, I saw it coming. I didn't find it overly shocking or surprising. Even though I saw it coming, I don't feel like it made a lot of sense. It required me to suspend a lot of belief, and it didn't work. It didn't work. So there you go. There's the first book. The next one that I want to talk about is Archive Undying. This is a sci-fi book that was unfortunately actually sent to me by Tor for review. And there are 5-star reviews for this book, and I don't get it. This is one of those that I just don't understand why people would love it, mostly because it's confusing as all get out. I did not follow, I could follow the words and I could follow the scenes, but put together in one book, it was a jumbled mess. I think that a lot of the reviews that I was looking at of people that did like this book said that it had really pretty prose and you just kind of had to be along for the ride and not care that you were confused, and fair. But pretty prose is not enough for me to like a book. I was expecting killer AI gods that could live in people's bodies and wanted to rise up again. Like, that's what I expected out of The Archive Undying, and instead I got a very quirky, sex-driven individual that had a god living in his body, but also that didn't really matter all at the same time. So it wasn't at all what I expected, and combine that with the super confusing, convoluted writing style, didn't work. I'm not a fan. Then we have Let Him In. This is a horror novel that I wanted to love because look at the cover of that. Like, look at the cover of that book. Looks so incredibly creepy. And then you combine that with the synopsis that is about twin daughters that have recently lost their mother and they're all grieving, and they go in their dad's room one night and they say, "Daddy, there's a strange man in our room." And there is like this creature that is in their room, and he becomes like this imaginary friend that's trying to take over their home. It sounds like such an incredible book, but it just ended up not being that. There was a lot of weird sexual relationship discussion stuff that I really didn't like and made me a little uncomfortable, and not in a good way. And then it just wasn't as creepy as I was expecting it to be. Combine that with an ending that basically wiped out the entire rest of the book. No. You were setting this up and you copped out, and I was not here for it. Set up a cool ending and follow through. But it's like, he was like, no, that goes a little too far. Let me rein it back in. No! Then we have Just the Nicest Couple by Mary Kubica. And honestly, this book was not good. I gave it a very low 2-star. But unlike some of the others, there's nothing inherently wrong with it. It's just boring. Because for me, I don't like domestic thrillers. I find most of them to be boring. No problems if you like a domestic thriller. By all means, I hope you do. But I don't. This is about a couple that lives near or in the same community as another couple, and one of the husbands goes missing, and so they decide that they're going to be nice and try to like meddle in everything, and there's a lot of drama that's in the background, and there's lies and yada yada yada, and it's supposed to be this really cool, interesting thing, and it wasn't. I don't dislike Mary Kubica. I've actually read a couple others of her books and didn't dislike them. One of them I actually really, really liked. I don't remember which one it was now. But I think that this one was just so hardcore domestic and there really wasn't a whole lot going on that I was just bored and it didn't work for me. Then we have Lady of Brooksgrove Manor by Catherine Moon. This is a book that just was very much so not for me. It's basically porn in a book. It is pure erotica. It is monster smut. And you know what? That's okay. I knew that going in. I wanted to try it. It's not for me. Our main character is pretty much just driven purely by sex. She is horny all the time, and you know what? Go her. She decides to move into a pleasure house essentially for monsters and develops a harem. And I don't know that reverse harem is really going to be my style. I liked a couple of the men that she had. I thought that they were really, really interesting, but I felt like we didn't get enough time with any of them. And like I said, this is mostly erotica. There's a little bit of a plot to it, but it is barely sprinkled in throughout the sex scenes. And if that's something that you want a ton of smut, a lot of spice, a lot of heat, then this book could really work for you. I don't think it's a poorly written book, but it's definitely not a Mel book. I skimmed a lot of it because I tend to skim sex scenes anyway. Combine that with that being almost the entire book, and I wasn't having a good time. Then we have A House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher, which hurts my soul. I've been on a trek to try to find another T. Kingfisher that I like since I loved The Hollow Places, but I'm unsure that I'm ever going to be successful. T. Kingfisher writes a very specific style of horror that is quite quirky and a little off its rocker. And in one sense, I love an unhinged book, but I like an unhinged book that makes sense. And I don't feel like House with Good Bones made any sense. We set up all this like flower stuff and she's going to like live with her grandmother because her grandmother is slowly ailing, and I was a little bored by the beginning part, and then we hit kind of the 2/3 and it just went in some kind of weird direction that did not make any sense at all. If we had set that up, maybe I could have gotten behind it, but there was no lead up. It was just like, whoa, where did that come from? I'm not here for it. You guys know me, I am a very logic-driven reader, so when something comes out of left field and does not make any sense, it almost always pulls me completely out of the story, and I wasn't in the story to begin with, so I just no longer cared at that point. Then What Lies Beyond the Veil by Harper L. Woods. I really wanted to like this book, and I actually did like The Coven by her. I think that they have very, very similar problems, but one worked for me and one didn't. I don't really know why one worked and one didn't. I think it had to do more with the couple, but the main problem of this is that she writes a very sex-focused fantasy romance, and you guys may be seeing a theme here. That's not something that I really like. I prefer a slow burn, enemies to lovers, you know, they don't kiss until 2/3 of the way through the book kind of thing. Whereas What Lies Beyond the Veil was like, as soon as they meet, he's talking about how awesome he is and how she needs to get in his pants and how he wants to get in her pants. And I'm just like, you're not all that in a bag of chips, my friend. The setup was very Regency, but didn't really make sense within the context of the world that was being created. Then they go off and they're running for their lives, and basically all they're talking about is how much they want each other. And I'm like, guys, you should run. It also had a trope that I really don't love. Most of the time I find this trope, and I don't really know whether it is a spoiler to say, but I find this trope to be kind of a cop-out, an easy way to get the characters together and not have to do a lot of setup, just to be like, oh, well, they love each other now and this is why. No, I need you to do more than that. There's only one time where I can think that I actually liked that, and it's because the setup was 700 pages long, and that was not used as an excuse to force them into loving one another. So I think that that is a huge problem that I have with a lot of fantasy romance, is I don't want them to just be hanging out and then all of a sudden, bam, they love each other. It's the best thing ever. Then we have Trial of the Sun Queen, which had very similar problems to What Lies Beyond the Veil. This is the Selection meets the Hunger Games, and we do start off with her kind of in this prison, this pit, and she is pulled out of there in order to go vie for the king's hand, I think. And they do this because they have to have somebody from like a certain area in order to participate, which is very selection vibes, the Hunger Game kind of in the pits kind of thing. And the beginning, like, there was a lot of crude for crude's sake. I kind of was able to look over that until we got to the palace setting, and then there was a switch that was flipped, and this girl, she would have done anything to sleep with the king. Literally anything. And I don't feel like there was enough reasoning behind her saying how much she wanted him, because he was kind of flat and no chemistry between them at all. And I didn't really... like, there was no reason why she wanted to win this. We didn't set up this big thing about her wanting to save a sibling or needing to save a kingdom or anything like that. She just was cool with sleeping with him. That was her thing. That was fine. You know, and then there was a relationship on the side that I'm assuming will develop in the later books, and it was just kind of hanging out in the periphery. It didn't really make sense. I didn't have a great time with this. It felt very young adult while also trying too hard to be adult. And so all of this like sexual innuendos and discussion was just like thrown in there, but not in a seamless way, and it just never felt adult despite trying to be. And so no, that one did not work for me at all. And last but not least is one that I feel like will probably make people angry with me, so please don't be mad at me. Please don't be mad at me, but that's How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. I wanted to love this book. We actually picked this book to read as a book club and live with everyone because we thought we were gonna love it, and no. I do like a grief horror, and that is a large part about what this book is about. It's following two siblings that's parents died, and they are going to clean out the home, trying to decide whether they're going to keep it, whether they're going to sell it, and there is a puppet in the attic. That's it. This could have been really cool. I want to know more about killer psychotic puppets. I'm here for a killer psychotic puppet. That's not what this book was about. The first probably 40% of this was them griping at each other and sniping and talking about how they hated one another and they needed to do this with their parents' house, and no, they needed to do this with it. And it was trying to be quirky, but it didn't make sense in the context of the grief horror. And I was bored in the first half, never bought it, and then we went into the second half, which was supposed to be this like unhinged puppet horror, and it just made no sense. The logic was not there. The puppet could have been cool, but instead the puppet was just weird, and it was trying to be quirky, and I know that that's Grady Hendrix' thing. I know quirky horror is his thing, but it missed the mark on this one for me completely. The ending just, it made no sense, and I struggle when we talk about logic-based things. In horror, I'm okay with things not being logical in the context of the story, but you have to set up the logic, like the illogic within the story. Does that make sense? So like you can't just throw things in there and not give me any context for it, because that doesn't make sense. But if you give me context for it and it doesn't make sense in the real world, that's still okay. Hopefully that makes no sense, but it makes sense in my brain. I did like the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by him, so I do think that there is a good like quirky horror in there somewhere. It missed the mark completely for me. It wasn't a miss for everybody, but 2 out of the 4 did not have a good time. All right guys, so I think that is all 10 books that I just really did not love this year. I wish that I had less to talk to you guys about. I wish that I had not read enough books to even make this list, but I hope it was entertaining for you. And honestly, I hope that you were like, man, I love quirky horror. I'm gonna pick that up. I hope that you found something. You're like, man, I love that fantasy romance trope, or yeah, I like erotica. I want to read that. I hope that you found something that you wanted to read on this list, but if all else fails, hopefully you were entertained and now you have some books that you know are not for you. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know down in the comments if you've read any of these and what your thoughts on them were. Let me know some books that you think that maybe I should avoid. And if you just want to let me know that you were here enjoying a good time, leave me the shouting emoji. As always, links to my Patreon, Instagram, Twitter, and Goodreads are all in the description box down below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up, subscribe if you want to, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!